Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Today I want to discuss Daenerys Targaryen and her transformation into the Mad Queen on the HBO mega hit series Game of Thrones. There will be spoilers in this video, so viewers, if you aren't caught up on all of Game of Thrones, up through and including the 5th episode of the 8th and final season, please be warned. The spoilers are about to begin.
About your father. About the Mad King.
The Mad King. You're here to remind me of my enemy's lies? Consider me reminded.
Your Grace.
I will crucify the masters. I will set their fleets afire, kill every last one of their soldiers, and return their cities to the dirt.
I served in his King's Guard. I was at his side from the first. Your enemies did not lie.
Go on. You don't approve.
You once told me you knew what your father was.
Your father set their towns and castles aflame. He murdered sons in front of their fathers. He burned men alive with wildfire and laughed as they screamed. Burn them all!
Where's my sister?
Led to a rebellion that killed every Targaryen. Except 2.
I'm not my father.
No, Your Grace. Thank the gods. But the Mad King gave his enemies the justice he thought they deserved. And each time, it made him feel powerful and right. Until the very end.
Dracarys.
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 Game of Thrones never had a shortage of villainous characters. A lot of gray area exists when it comes to distinguishing the good characters from the evil ones, but even within that large gray area, most observers would probably agree that there have been no shortage of despicable acts being committed. Jaime Lannister was willing to kill a child in order to keep his incestuous love a secret. King Joffrey Baratheon was cruel and sadistic. Stannis Baratheon was willing to burn his own daughter to death. Peter Baelish was a complete and total scumbag who was quick to cause trouble. Ramsay Bolton was a crazy sadistic bastard. Ilaria Sand poisoned and murdered an innocent child who had never done anyone any harm. And the list goes on and on and on. And now that the dust is settling, with far too many evil acts to count, none of them come close to the ruthlessly irredeemable mass murder committed by one Daenerys Targaryen, the Mad Queen indeed. Daenerys Targaryen will always be remembered as the evil tyrant who destroyed a city and burnt it to the ground along with thousands and thousands of innocent lives. Daenerys is a maniac, and her name will live on in infamy. She will be even more hated than her father before her, as she further tarnishes the family name. And Daenerys' final descent into madness was exceptionally well done. And I thought the bait and switch they played was brilliant. While Daenerys will now go down to be remembered as the most evil woman Westeros has ever known, Queen Cersei will be remembered as a hero who did her best to protect the city from the insane tyrant Daenerys. This was excellent storytelling, and like most good tragedy, you couldn't take your eyes off the spectacle of the transformation. It was an outstanding execution that successfully left the audience every bit as shocked as characters like Tyrion and Jon Snow and Queen Cersei as they all watched on in horror. The way this was all set up is a credit to both Martin and the show creators. Martin obviously gets the credit on setting the story up for this from the very start, because there's no doubt that Martin's ending will match the broad strokes of what we got here in the show. We can at least reasonably expect this to be true based on the fact that Martin reportedly revealed the key points of the ending to the creators several years ago. That said, no doubt Martin would have done a better job providing the intricate details that brought us to the moment where Daenerys was overtaken with rage and madness. The writing of the show has certainly suffered since the creators ran out of source material. But all of this sort of reminds me of the teacher played by Sam Kinison in the epic comedy classic Back to School.
I mean, I hold history very sacred. Sacred. The way the farmer looks at the earth and he holds it sacred. The way a Christian takes the Bible and he holds it sacred. The way a lot of people hold their marriage sacred.
A lot of die-hard Martin purists view his books in the same way that Kinison's character viewed history, as something sacred. But it seems to me that an awful lot of Martin purists are trying to have things both ways. If Martin is truly this awesome, one-of-a-kind genius of an author, then shouldn't it be expected that the writing would suffer following the end of the source material? More to the point, Martin was originally supposed to finish the books before the show caught up, but that never happened.
He made millions of dollars. He's sitting on his ass.
Instead, the creators ran out of source material. So it should be expected that the writing would suffer without Martin's blueprints. And if Martin's work was as sacred to him the way it is to some of his die-hard purist fans, then shouldn't Martin have held off on a television adaptation until after the books were finished? I think Martin is an awesome writer and that the creators are executing the story very well. They're out of source material, and I think they're doing an admirable job, all things considered. Benioff and Weiss were put into a very difficult situation, but inexplicably, the die-hard purists are intensely critical of the show creators on several fronts, specifically the breaking point for the Mad Queen, as if the show creators just made this ending up and ignored the basic ending Martin provided for them reportedly several years ago. But Martin actually deserves credit here, because I have no doubt whatsoever that he had this idea of Daenerys succumbing to her inner madness. This is an idea I believe he had all along, and I believe the show is effectively doing a good job telling that main part of the story. A lot of people are complaining about a lack of character development this season, but that's because we've already gotten that for 7 seasons. At this point in the story, we're past character development, and now it's a question of seeing how the conflicts play out. And that's exactly what we've been seeing this season. But the way I see so many complaints, oh, Dumb and Dumber didn't do this. Oh, Dumb and Dumber messed up here and there. Oh, Dumb and Dumber. These criticisms are often rather harsh, and they've almost become like political talking points. I know a lot of fans have invested a lot of time and energy into the show. I totally understand that, and I'm just as full of shit as anyone else. So I'm not trying to discredit any dissenting opinions here, but I, for one, have thoroughly enjoyed watching this season play out. And I especially liked watching Daenerys in her final transformation into the Mad Queen, because Daenerys has always been a monster in the making.
I am the wife of the great Khal, and I carry his son inside me.
A crown for a king.
The next time you raise a hand to me will be the last time you have hands.
Khaleesi.
He was no dragon. Fire cannot kill a dragon.
And I swear to you that those who would harm you will die screaming.
Dracarys.
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 Daenerys wasn't always a monster, but she was always a monster in the making. For starters, Daenerys always had an incredible lust for violence. This first became apparent when she coldly stared on her dead brother's body after he was murdered by Drogo and the Dothraki. Daenerys enjoyed the violence, and this aspect of her character grew considerably with the passing of each season. Daenerys often had violence on the mind, and while her advisors generally tended to tame her worst impulses, whenever she did engage in violent activity, she certainly appeared to enjoy it, at times actually almost looking as if she was getting off from her incredible powers of destruction. Daenerys was no stranger to violence, and beyond that, even when Daenerys was seemingly being just and honorable, she always had an angle. There was always an ulterior motive.
The common people are waiting for him. Illyrio said they are sewing dragon banners and praying for his return.
The common people pray for rain, health, and a summer that never ends. They don't care what games the High Lords play.
Lomiri Ziri, Mesmalgon Bestila, Tolvis Jevis.
Without the Unsullied to enforce your rule, the wise masters have retaken control of the city. They've re-enslaved the freedmen who stayed behind and sworn to take revenge against you.
I ask you to let me sell myself back to Master Migdal.
You want to return to a man who owned you.
The council you installed to rule over the city has been overthrown by a butcher named Cleon.
I did not take this city to preside over the injustice I fought to destroy. I took it to bring people freedom. How can I rule 7 kingdoms if I can't control Slaver's Bay?
What does it mean? It is old Kiskari, Khaleesi. It means mother.
Why should anyone trust me? Why should anyone follow me?
You're a Targaryen. You're the mother of dragons.
I need to be more than that. I am not here to be Queen of the Ashes.
That's very nice to hear.
Make no mistake, Daenerys was always a power-hungry maniac with a massive ego. But Daenerys was much smarter than her brother Viserys. Daenerys knew that in order to become an effective ruler, that she needed to win people over. Daenerys knew this was essential to becoming an effective ruler, but she also knew that winning the people over would help feed her disgustingly massive ego. Every act of kindness exhibited by Daenerys had one purpose: try and win them over. This can be seen in the aftermath of the battle at Winterfell. Daenerys helped save the North, and she was fully expecting that this would result in a big boost of support for her ego. But that didn't happen. Instead, Daenerys looked like a jealous bitch with all of the attention on Jon Snow. But Daenerys has always been selfish and power-hungry. Even when she freed the slaves at Yunkai in an apparent act of kindness, this was self-serving. Daenerys didn't care about liberating the slaves. She only cared that this resulted in her being viewed as a liberator. Look at that smile. Daenerys is loving the attention. These people adore her, and her massive ego is being vigorously stroked. Every act of kindness by Daenerys was an underhanded deception designed to manipulate people into liking and respecting her. It was all a big charade, a giant con, and the evidence for this has been there all along. When Jon Snow told her his true identity, Daenerys didn't give a shit. Quite the contrary, she immediately questioned the validity of his claim, and when she realized it was true, she viewed him as a threat and begged him to remain silent. The audacity of her sense of self-entitlement was on full display. Daenerys wanted her power, and she wanted to be adored and admired by the masses. But she soon realized that despite her best effort to deceive the masses, these people didn't love her. They loved Jon Snow, who just so happens to be the rightful heir. So when Daenerys lost her closest allies in Jorah and Missandei, and when she felt betrayed by Varys and Jon Snow and Sansa Stark and Tyrion, Daenerys then realized that she not only failed to win the love of the people, but she couldn't even trust or depend on her closest people that she supposedly already did win over. So Daenerys selfishly dismissed her moral compass and proceeded to throw a giant temper tantrum on her beast of mass destruction, killing thousands and thousands of innocents in the process. All because Daenerys was a power-hungry maniac who didn't get her way, and she had her massive ego bruised. Poor Daenerys. The writing was always on the wall for something like this to happen. The clues were all in place, and by season 7, the creators nearly shoved this fact in our faces when Daenerys ruthlessly executed poor Dickon and his old man. She was always a monster in the making. She always had a supersized massive ego. She always loved violence. She always had a bitchy sense of self-entitlement. And almost every decision she ever made was ultimately self-serving in her crazy lust for power and admiration. Simply put, Daenerys is a selfish maniac who cares about nothing but herself. And I absolutely loved experiencing her final descent into madness. I thought the main story points leading up to this were all very well established by Martin, and I think the show creators did a terrific job bringing this conflict to fruition on the screen. Is Season 8 perfect? No, of course not. But I, for one, have found it to be a very fun and enjoyable experience, and I can't wait to see what happens in the final episode. How do you think things will play out? Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed, and have a wonderful night.
Dracarys.
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 Dracarys.